Okay, so we are going to start a triggers. First of all, trigger is a named PL/SQL block. First point, and the second point is associated to an event. So trigger always associated to an event. Okay, whenever that event happened in database, automatically trigger is going to execute. So that means trigger is automatic execution. So we don't need to write any calling program for trigger. Need any calling program. Trigger execution. Okay, so we don't need any calling program for trigger execution. We are not going to write any calling program because the trigger is automatic execution. When it is going to execute, trigger is going to execute whenever event. What is that event? We will see. Okay, so a trigger can be trigger is always associated to an event. Okay, so event of what? Right? Okay, the trigger event is any one of the following. Trigger event is any one of the following. DML command on table. Any DML command. That means it can be a insert. It can be a update. It can be a delete. So that means any command. Okay. On any DDL command execution. DDL command like a create, alter, drop, any create command, and an operation on a database operation, any database operation. Okay, the database operation is server error. Whenever there is a server error, so if you want to execute any code whenever there is a server error, okay, so log on. That means if you want to execute any code after log on, okay, log off. If you want to execute any trigger before log off, startup. If you want to execute any code, the database startup, and shutdown. Say any one of this event. So the trigger is associated to an event. Okay, so that event, DML command and a table or view. Let's see. So associated to an event. So event can be any DML command or any DDL command or any database operation. Okay, so based on the trigger event, so the DML. So these triggers are called as a DML triggers. These triggers. So that means trigger associated to an DML event. Those are called as a DML triggers. This is called as a DDL triggers. This is called as a DDL trigger. These are the database triggers. So if anybody asks you what are the types of triggers, so the types of triggers are based on the event. Triggers are classified into three types: DML trigger, DDL trigger, and the database trigger. Okay, the trigger is going to execute automatically. Okay, so as a developer, we are 100% responsible for the DML trigger. Every developer is responsible for DML trigger, and the senior developers are responsible for DDL triggers. And the database triggers are, we are not responsible for database triggers. As a developer, you are not responsible for the database trigger because the database triggers created by DBS, the database administrator. So basically, a trigger is a named PL/SQL block. Okay, named PL/SQL block means it stores in the database. Okay, named PL/SQL block stores in database. How long it's going to store? Until we drop it. Until we drop it. So named PL/SQL block stored in the database until we drop it. This is associated to an event. What is that event? So that event can be a DML event or DDL event or database trigger. DML event can be a insert, update or delete. DDL is any create, any alter, any drop, something. Okay, the database operation. So it can be a server error, log on or log off and start up and shut down. As a developer, we are responsible for 1 and 2 category. Okay, so DML trigger, system trigger. So this is called as a database trigger or system triggers also. Okay, the database triggers are system triggers. So that means, so whenever that event happens, so that means DML trigger is always created on a table or view. Okay, right? View. So trigger on view is called as a instead of trigger. Trigger on view is called instead of trigger. That is not required now. We will discuss this after finishing the views. Okay, trigger on view is called as a instead of trigger. So what are the types of triggers? DML trigger, DDL trigger, and the database operation. System trigger or everything. Everybody is clear so far? Yes or no, please? Okay, so why we have to create a trigger? What are the advantages of a trigger? Advantages of triggers. Okay, first thing is automatic population of a primary keys. Primary key column values or any derived column. Okay, we will see this example. Let's see. Okay, so I will explain this example. Automatic population of a primary key column. So what is the primary key in my employee table? Employee table primary key is employee number. So I don't want user to enter a value. So that should be generated by system. So the user will give only answer value to name, job, manager, hire date, salary, commission and department. So I don't want to give this department number. But it should be populated by system. So that can be done with a automatic population of a primary key or any derived column. Let's say I have a salary and a commission. I have a salary and commission. So I want to populate a new column called total salary without giving a value into that one. See here, I have a, let's see. Just I'm executing one alter to add a new column. Okay, so how many columns are there here? I have a total salary column. But I don't want to insert the value into this column. I don't want to insert, but I have to populate the value based on this salary plus commission. So user will give only salary and commission only, but this should be populated. This should be populated automatically. That is a derived column, and the employee number is a column. So that should be automatically populated. Okay, and one more example is whatever user give, I want to store only in uppercase. So user is giving information in the smaller case, but I want to store in the uppercase. So how can I do it? Okay, user will give hire date. So I want to calculate the experience of an employee automatically. See, this means automatically whenever a user is inserting the data into employee table, so the total salary should be populated automatically and employee number should be populated automatically, and I want to convert all the whatever value the user is giving, whether it can be uppercase or lowercase or mixed case. I want to store only in uppercase. How can I do it? So this is the trigger, because the trigger is an automatic execution and it is associated to an event. So that means that is our insert event. Okay, now everybody is a clear advantage of the trigger. Everybody is a clear? Yes or no, please? Advantages. Okay, so we can do complex condition business logic. We can implement complex business logic. What is the complex business logic? For example, okay, see here. So I want to stop insert operation. Insert on EMP during weekends. Okay, so during non-working hours. During non-working hours or during public holidays. I want to do a stop inserting operation. So if anybody try to insert a data into employee table during the weekends, either Saturdays and Sundays, and during the non-working hours, that means before 9 and after 5, and during a public holidays, if you try to do any operation on the public holidays, I want to stop. Okay, and thing is stop DML operation if salary value is greater than 5,000. Okay, so I'm inserting a data into employee table. If anybody insert the salary greater than 5,000, stop. If anybody is updating a salary, if it is updating a salary 5,000 greater than 5,000, under stop. So that is the complex business logic. Okay, now before inserting data into employee table, I want to verify DEPT table have a department number or not. So we can implement parent-child relationships. We can enforce, we can validate the data what you are giving into table is following parent-child relationships, yes or no. We can do those type of complex logics. And third one is we can monitor, we can audit operations on tables. So that means I want to know who is inserting data into my employee table, who is updating, who is deleting, and who is inserting the data. So I want to know who is doing what on database. Monitor the operations on table. That means we can audit. This is called as a audit. Auditing on tables. Auditing on tables. So we can monitor operations on tables and we can monitor auditing on tables. So this is the example. So we can automatic population of primary key column values and we can derive any values and we can implement the complex business logic and we can monitor the operations on everything. Everybody is clear? Everybody is clear? Okay, trigger automatically executes. So whenever an event, associated event occurs in a database. Automatic primary key means, that means, see, I want to, this is the employee number is a primary key, right? So the user will give only employee name, job, manager, hire date, salary, commission and department only. So this should be populated from a sequence, automatic. So what is the maximum number here? The maximum number is 7902. So whenever a next row is inserting, it should increment by 1, 7903. Automatically that value will be incremented by. So automatically we have to populate the data. Everybody is clear? So that means I don't want to. The user will enter the value, duplicate value into employee number. That should be incremented by 1 automatically. That can be done with this one. Okay, trigger automatically execute whenever associated event happened in the database. On database. Whenever an associated event on the database. So whatever event, it can be a insert, update or delete on the table. Okay, let's see. We will create a DML triggers. DML triggers. Okay, let's see. So automatically executes whenever an event happened. So whenever that event associated to the trigger happened, the trigger executes. The trigger states are two types. Trigger states enabled or disabled. And disabled. Enable or disable. Enable trigger and disable triggers. Only triggers which are in the enable state will fire. Triggers which are in the enable state will execute. Will execute. Triggers which are in the enable state will execute. So the disabled trigger which are not going to execute. Execute. So the triggers which are in the enable state will execute. Triggers which are in the disabled state, it won't execute. So automatically see, I'm saying here is trigger automatically execute. If a trigger want to execute, it should be in the enable state. If any trigger is in the disabled state, that will not execute. So we can enable or disable the trigger using a alter table command. We can alter table command. We can enable or disable a trigger. So using alter table and with alter trigger command also. Okay. And using drop trigger command. Command is for dropping a trigger. So if you want to drop unnecessary trigger, drop trigger command. Okay. Now using create trigger command for creating a trigger. We will see the syntax and everything. Creating a trigger. Okay. So now let's see DML triggers. The DML trigger means trigger associated to DML event. Associated to DML event. What is the DML event? It can be a insert or update or delete command. Okay. So DML trigger creates on tables. DML trigger will be creates on tables for a DML event, DML command. Okay, so create trigger for insert, create trigger for update, create trigger for delete. We can create a single trigger for all events. We can create single trigger for one or more DML commands. Okay, that means I can write a three triggers, one trigger for insert or one trigger for update or one trigger for delete, or I can write a single trigger for insert, update and delete. So that means the trigger, if a trigger created on more than one DML command, that means one trigger which can fire, which can execute for insert, update or delete command. So that means a single trigger for three commands. Everybody is clear? Or we can create a one trigger for insert, one trigger for update, one trigger for delete, or we can create a single trigger for all commands. Okay, everybody? Yes or no? Please let me know. Please let me know so far. Anybody have any doubts, please? That's very important. Okay. Now, yeah. So the trigger, we can, DML triggers means associated to any DML event. What is the DML command? It can be an insert, update or delete. Now, DML trigger is always creates on tables. So that means DML trigger is always associated to a table, for a specific DML command. That means trigger executes. I'm creating a trigger for insert command on employee table. I'm creating a trigger for update command on employee table. I'm creating a trigger for delete command on employee table, or I can create a trigger for insert or update or delete command. So that means it can fire for any command. Divya, clear? Everybody is Divya clear? Okay, so we can create a trigger on view, so that is called as a instead of trigger. Don't worry about this one, we will see. Instead of trigger is nothing but a trigger on view. Similar to table, there is a one more database object called view, so we will create a trigger on view. So instead of trigger is nothing but a trigger on view. So DML commands and sorry. Okay, let's see. What is the trigger syntax? DML trigger means associated to an insert, update, or delete. Let's see the syntax of a trigger. Okay, let's see trigger components. Before going to that one, trigger components. Trigger components. So that means the different parts of a trigger. Different parts of a triggers are, first thing is trigger event. Trigger event is nothing but an insert. It can be an insert or update or delete. Okay, it can be an insert or delete. Now, trigger timing. Trigger timing. So that is nothing but a before or after. Before or after. That means trigger timing means. So insert. Do you want to execute the trigger before insert or after insert? Do you want to execute the trigger before update or after update? So when you have to execute a trigger. So that is nothing but a before or after. Before means, okay, so trigger event. Do you want to execute this trigger before the trigger event or after the trigger event? Trigger type. Statement or row level. So just wait for a couple of minutes for this explanation. Trigger types are, okay, so the trigger type, the statement level trigger or row level trigger. So that I'll explain that one. Okay, so the trigger is a statement level trigger or trigger body. So this is actual PL SQL code executes whenever a trigger fire. This is actual PL SQL code. Code for trigger execution. So whenever a trigger happened, so the PL SQL code is going to execute. So the trigger event can be a insert, update or delete. And the trigger timing can be a before or after. And the trigger type can be a statement or low level trigger. And trigger body, this is the actual PL SQL code for trigger execution. This is the code we can execute a PL SQL block. Okay, so by using these three logic, how many maximum number of triggers we can create on a table? Maximum number, not maximum number, maximum number combinations. Let's see. So how many events are there? 3 events. And how many timings are there? 2 timings. And how many types are there? 2 types. So that is equal to 12. So the 12 combinations of trigger we can write on a trigger. We can create the 12 combinations. If anybody asks you how many triggers we can create with the different combinations, we can write 12 triggers on a table. For a same event, we can write any number of triggers. That's a very important point. For a same event, we can write any number of triggers on the same table. We can write any number of triggers on same table. So that is the 12 is the maximum number of combinations we can write on a trigger. Okay, so now how it is 12? 3. Insert, update, delete. 2. Before and after. And 2. Statement under row level trigger. Okay, let's see. So what is trigger type? So this is clear and this is clear and this is the clear. Okay, trigger body is nothing but a PL SQL block. Okay, now so what is this trigger type? Let's see. Update EMP set salary is equal to salary plus 10. What is the statement? Okay, this is one single update statement. Single update statement. Okay, so it affects 14 rows. It affects 14 rows. So I'm creating a trigger. So do you want to execute a trigger? Trigger for only one time or okay, so number of rows affected times, or for every row it affects. For every row your command affects, DML command affects. We need to decide. So do you want to execute the trigger only for one time or only for every row your DML command affects? Okay, so now if you want to execute only one time, so that is nothing but a statement level trigger. So the statement level trigger executes only one time for every statement, and the row level trigger executes how many times? It affects n number of times. What is that n? N means that number of rows it affected. How many number of rows it affected? Okay, so the trigger event, insert, update or delete statement. Trigger timing is before or after the statement or row level trigger. Trigger body is a actual PL SQL code. So everybody is clear what is the statement level trigger and what is the row level trigger? Everybody is clear? Yes or no, please let me know. Executes only one time, and the row level trigger executes for every row the statement affects. Every row. Okay, right? The statement level trigger executes only one time and the row level trigger. Okay, so let's see. The trigger is always associated to an event. Let's see the syntax of everybody. Is it clear before going into the syntax? Everybody is it clear? Okay, now, and one thing is for every operation, for creating a procedure, for creating a view, for creating a table, for creating a procedure, function, package, trigger, for everything we need a privilege. We need a privilege to create a triggers also. We need to create privilege for what is the command you will be using for granting a privileges in the database. What is the command we will be using for granting a privileges? Grant. The data control, grant command and revoke command. Okay, that we will see in a after finishing our this one. So the grant and the revoke. Everybody is clear? Can I go with the syntax? Can I go with the syntax? Yes. Okay, let's see the syntax. This is very important. So create or replace trigger name. Create or replace trigger name before or after insert or update or delete. We can write all or we can write only one. Delete. Okay, on table name for each row, so when conditions and your trigger body is nothing but a begin, exception, end. Here we will declare all the variables, begin, exception, and end. So create or replace trigger name. So this is a trigger name and this is a trigger timing and this is a trigger event and this is the trigger source. Trigger source means on which we are creating a trigger. So this is for row level trigger. So if you don't put anything, that is a, if you don't put for each row, what it will be? If we don't put for each row, what it will be? Statement level trigger. If you don't put for each, it will be a statement level trigger. So this is a condition. Yes. Okay, this is a trigger restriction. Trigger restriction. So this is a actual PL SQL code. It is going to execute. When it is going to execute, whenever you are doing any one this operation on this table, so either for each row or when a condition satisfied. Let's see one example. So create or, I'll explain, create or replace trigger emp sal restrict. Okay, before insert or update or delete. So that means same trigger, delete on emp. Okay, for each row, so when job is equal to precedent, so begin, end, dbms underscore output dot put underscore line, sorry, you cannot touch precedent record. You cannot touch precedent record. See here. Okay, so now this is the trigger. So emp salary restriction is my trigger. This is going to execute on employee table. Okay, so before insert or update or delete. So the single trigger on multiple events. Okay, and one thing is for each row, the statement level trigger. So when a job is equal to precedent, that means when a job is, whenever you are inserting or updating or deleting a record which contains a precedent value in the job column, then only this code is going to execute. So whenever you are inserting or updating or deleting a row on employee table, okay, so that row contains a precedent in the job column, so then only your trigger body is going to execute. Everybody is clear? So the trigger restriction is only for each trigger only, for row level triggers only. For each only, for row level trigger only. So the trigger restriction is only for row level triggers only. So that means it is only for row level trigger. Okay, when a condition or trigger body. Everybody is clear? Yes or no? Please let me know if you have any issues. This trigger is going to execute. Okay, This trigger is going to execute whenever you are doing a insert or update or delete on employee table. Okay, employee table, and it executes for each row. Whenever you are executing a row which contains job is equal to president, so then only this trigger is going to execute. Okay, create or replace trigger name. So monitor DML OPS before insert or update or delete on EMP begin end. So this is the insert monitor log DML operation. See here. So now, so what is this trigger? This trigger is going to execute. First of all, is it a statement level trigger or it is a row level trigger? What it is? Is it a statement level trigger or it is a row level trigger? Is it a statement? What is the statement level trigger?
Statement level.
Yes. So this is a statement level trigger. Okay. So when this trigger is going to execute, this trigger is going to execute before insert or update or delete on employee table. Whenever a user try to insert or update or delete, so I'm inserting a record into this table. I'm inserting a record into monitor log. The monitor log is my table name. I'm going to insert the data into this table. So the trigger is going to execute at the same time. Okay, trigger and so DML statement and trigger executes in the same transaction. Executes simultaneously. If a DML statement fails, your trigger is also going to fail. If a trigger fails, your DML statement will fail. If a statement fails, your trigger is going to fail. So that means those two are dependent to each other. So, okay, if a statement fails, your trigger is going to fail. If a trigger fails, your statement is going to fail. Everybody is clear? So if this insert fail, if make any the syntax here, so you cannot perform that insert or update or delete operation. That statement will be completely rolled back. That's a very important thing. So it executes both simultaneously. Both are together. If one fails, other one is going to fail. Everybody is clear? Everybody is clear? Okay. So now, let's see. I want to stop DML operation. I want to write a trigger. Okay, one thing. Okay, so I'm inserting data. Insert into DEPT values. I'm giving 11, 12, 12. Okay, so now see, this is the data we are inserting. So these the values we are inserting. So the 12 goes to department number, and this goes to department name. This 12 goes to department number, and this goes to D name, and this goes to the location, right? This goes to location, and this goes to department name, and this goes to department number. Okay, so within a row level trigger, we can modify the data what you are inserting or updating or deleting. That's a very important point. Within row level trigger, so we can modify the row values, what you are giving during insert or update or delete. That means within the trigger body here. So this is the trigger body, right? So within the begin and end, we can access the data what you are inserting or updating or deleting, or you can modify also. Please remember this carefully. During the row level triggers only, you cannot access the data in the statement level trigger. So that means within the trigger body, for a row level trigger, we can access the row, whatever row we are giving. This is the row we are giving. So this row can be accessed inside your trigger body. That is only for row level triggers. Everybody is clear? Yes or no, please? Okay, let's see. Write a trigger for stopping. So DML operations after working hours. I want to stop DML operation after working hours. So what is the meaning of a working hour? It should allow only morning 9 to 5 p.m. only, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. If anybody try to insert a data into employee table between 9 to 5, it allows. If I try to insert or update or delete after 5, it should fail. Want to write a single trigger for all operations. Let's see carefully. Create or replace trigger DML on EMP before insert or update or delete. Before insert before insert or update or delete on EMP. Okay, so now begin end. So here I want to calculate the time. So how can I calculate the time? Okay, so now I want to allow this operation only between 9 and 5. So how can I stop it? How can I stop that operations? So how do you know the current time? System date will give you the time. So how can I get the time? What is the current time? It's 9 o'clock, right? How can I get the current time? How can I get the current time? Please. Timestamp will give you the complete, right? I want to only the current time. I want to know only current time. System date minus timestamp. That's a completely wrong. Sorry. Yeah, how do you know the current time? How do you know the current? I want to know the time, right? If it is a time is greater than 5 p.m., then I want to stop. To care of system date comma HH. That's right. See here. Select. Current timestamp will give you the complete information. So if you see the current timestamp from dual, so it will give you the complete date, time zone also. See date. Here I want only 09. I don't want all this information. I want to see the current time only. Comma HH. HH means it gives in the here. See 09, 9 o'clock. If I want to get it in the 24 clock, 21. See this one. So now declare a variable time number of 2. Select to care of system date comma hh24 into v underscore time from dual. So I'm getting this one time. So now if v underscore time is less than 9 or v underscore time greater than 17, 17 means 5 o'clock. So then and then here I want to stop. Okay, if it is greater than, I want to fail the trigger. I don't want to write the dbms underscore output. I want to fail the trigger. So if you fail this trigger, so automatically, so the Oracle is going to fail your insert or update or delete statement. So we have to fail. That's why I'm using raise. I'll explain this one. Raise application error. Application error. ERROR. Okay, let's see. Minus 20,001. You cannot do DML operations during non-working hours. Non-working hours. I'll explain this raise application error just 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm creating a trigger. So trigger compiled successfully. Let's try to delete the data. So delete from EMP where employee number is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm deleting the data from employee where employee number is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. See, you cannot do the DML operations during the non-working hours. So here, whatever number I have given 20,001, so it is coming here 00 20,000. Everybody is clear. So it is not allowing to delete the data. So whenever you are deleting, I got this error. How? Because whenever you are executing any DML statement, Oracle try to find is there any triggers. Okay, yes, we have some triggers in my employee table. Yes, what is this trigger? This trigger is before insert or update or delete. Yes, we are doing the delete operation. Okay, on employee, yes, we are deleting from employee table. Okay, so now immediately it executes this code. So whenever all these conditions happen, whenever this condition satisfied, immediately Oracle execute this code. Within this code, we are checking the current time. If this current time is less than 9 or greater than 17, I'm executing the raise application error. What is that raise application error is? So the raise application error, well, first of all, raise application error is a procedure or it is a function? Is it a function or it is a procedure? Anybody? Is it a function or it is a procedure? Raise application error is a procedure or a function? Next. Raise application error is a function or procedure. Next. Everybody says. Okay. So what I'm doing is, after finishing my class, I will send my Bank of America account. Please transfer $50 everyone. Okay. Because everything is wrong. Raise application error is a procedure. Why you people are saying is a function? Function returns a value, right? I have to call a function in this way. I need to capture the return value into a variable for function. But here I'm not using this variable. Right? So this is simple. It is a procedure. It's not a function. It is not returning. I'm not capturing a value into a variable. Okay. So the raise application error is a procedure. This is not bad. Try. See the basic difference. Okay. Concept is very, very important. So the raise application error is a procedure. What the procedure will do? Okay, so this procedure immediately fails the operation what you are doing and return back to your environment. It fails the operation. So whenever a trigger, we are failing the trigger. The raise application error, wherever you are using the raise application error, it fails that operation and control will be returned back to your environment. So if you fail the trigger, automatically your DML statement is also going to fail. If you fail, we are failing in the trigger, that's for failing. So wherever it is there, it fails here and it returns back to your calling environment. The raise application error fails the operation and it calls back to your return. Okay, what is this 20,001 and this one? So this 20,001 is the user defined error number. User defined error number. That's a user defined. See here, ORA 20,001, and this is your error message. Every exception is associated to error number and error code. Error code, this is error code, and this is your error message. What is this is doing here? We are failing the operation and we are returning this message as an exception to the end user. Okay, everybody is clear? Yes or no, please? Okay, and what are the numbers I have to use here? We have to use only numbers between 20,000 to 20,999. I cannot use whatever numbers. The numbers we have to use is 20,000 to 20,999. Between these numbers only we have to use. So we are returning this message as an exception. So the raise application error is going to fail your current operation. Okay, everybody is clear? So this trigger is going to execute whenever you are doing a delete or insert or update on employee table. So whenever these conditions are satisfied, so it executes this code. Within this code, we are stopping that operation. Okay, if we change, I change it to 4:13 p.m. Okay, 4:13 p.m. Now delete it. See here, one row deleted because even though this trigger is failing, so this condition is not satisfying. That's why. So the raise application error is not working. Raise application error is not working. So your delete statement is successful. Okay, everybody. Yes or no, please? Yes, sir. Today I am stopping here. Tomorrow we will continue again on triggers tomorrow. Tomorrow we have one more class on the triggers with a few examples. I will concentrate more on the DML triggers, the DDL triggers, and the database triggers. You have to study. I will provide a notes. Okay. Tomorrow we will see more examples on the triggers. Okay. Or DDL triggers I will explain after finishing the DDL commands. DDL commands, we have not covered the DDL commands. So we will discuss those triggers after finishing the DDL commands. Okay, everyone. So please go through it. And Shravani, did you download the last class videos I uploaded? Shravani, did you download the videos?
Yes, sir. Download చేసుకున్నాను.
Okay, so I'm deleting the files. Okay, sir. See you tomorrow from tomorrow onwards. The class is at 7 o'clock. I told you yesterday. So the class is at 7 o'clock. See you tomorrow. Okay, sir. Bye. Good night. If you have any issues, please let me know before closing. Anybody have any issues?